It was always going to be a tough task for the Bears to topple a promotion-hunting Oldham side, and so it proved to be on Sunday. We've got all the reaction from that match, plus we hand out our own end-of-season awards as a precursor to the real things this weekend. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bear Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bear Necessities, your favourite podcast about Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. We're sponsored by York's Tim, and you can find us in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and on Spotify, YouTube, and loads of other places too. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson, and joining me back from his holidays is my co-host Craig Cathcart. Craig, you have a good break?
Yes, mate. I'm nice and relaxed, but really ready for the weekend now. Final game of the season, and it's going to be an absolute cracker, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. There's a very high likelihood that we might even see the league trophy at the game at the weekend. Obviously, it'd be nicer if the Bears' hands were going to be getting on it, but we'll get to that later in the episode. So we'll start off with last weekend's game. So Craig obviously wasn't able to make it to rugby for Sunday's game against Oldham. I was there, so I can give you a bit of an overview of the match. I think it has to be said the Bears competed really well, but were just undone by the clinical nature of Oldham's play. They're obviously still chasing promotion. They didn't want to make any mistakes and risk missing out on promotion. And there are a few errors from the Bears that led directly to tries, and frankly, just the Bears didn't get enough possession. So the Bears competed well for about 15 minutes, kept the score at 0-0. But ultimately, by half-time, Oldham were 24-0 up, and by full-time, that ended up being 56 to the visitors, with the Bears' try coming courtesy of Jacob Jones and a conversion from Elliot Hall. We'll chat a little bit about that game and look ahead to this weekend's game in a moment, but first, here's what Bears head coach Tom Tsang had to say when I caught up with him about it on Monday afternoon. I mean, obviously, Oldham still gunning for the title, still going for that automatic promotion, and the scoreline would suggest a bit of a walloping, but actually, watching the game, the Bears were pretty close to them for a good 15-20 minutes at the start of the game, and there were periods of the match when you really did match them. To me, it just kind of felt like Oldham were very clinical in punishing Bears' mistakes, and also you guys didn't really get the ball. I mean, how did you see the game yesterday?
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well there, Dave. So we sort of summed it up in the change rooms after the game. It was like we were competitive for 9 minutes, and then we'd make an error in the 10th minute, and then they'd be like really, really clinical, like you said, and punish us straight away with a try. So over the course of 10 minutes, it's an even match, but one error equals a try, and then the next 10-minute period, the same thing, 9 minutes of competitive, even rugby league, and then one error from us gets turned into a try. So that's all of a sudden 12-0. Where out of 18 minutes of the 20, it's been really, really even, and then that was the story throughout the first 40 minutes. 4 errors led to 4 tries, and we're going at 24-0, feeling like we've been really, really competitive, really, really close in the game, and a much improved performance in that first half from previous 2 or 3 games, and definitely defensively. But those 1 or 2 errors, 4 errors that we made in that first 40 minutes all got punished straight away. And we did test them, and we made some good breaks. We worked really hard to come away and out of our own half of the field, and weren't quite able to be particularly clinical ourselves in key areas. And like I said, we just got punished. And then the second half was very, very similar, very competitive for big patches. But every error we made, when we started to sort of try and force the issue a little bit and to sort of try and get ourselves back into the game again, we've got to take our hats off to Oldham in just how professional, how clinical they were, and how they just at no point across the 80 minutes did they sort of lower their standards and lower the level they were playing at. They were very consistent, and where we were sort of up and down, they just were just very, very even, and and took their chances very well. So you look at the scoreline, and like you say, it looks like it was a heavy one-sided walloping, but realistically, for I'd say 75% of the game, it was very close, but they just took every single chance that came their way.
And I guess, there were a couple of sort of half breaks that you guys made where perhaps, I don't know, because the team has changed so much this year, perhaps there was that lack of familiarity to finish it off. Or the one I can particularly remember is Brad Sheridan making the break after Nathan Conroy's chip and chase and Elliot Hall taking it on. It was almost as if he didn't quite back himself to make it there, did he? He sort of caught the ball and was looking around for support. Like, is that a confidence thing? Is that a weariness at the end of the season thing? Or is it that lack of continuity week on week that the Bears have had to put up with this season? I mean,
the chance that you mentioned there specifically, I think Brad's done very well to support the play and be in position to receive the ball, but in all fairness and no disrespect to Brad, he wouldn't be the player that we'd be wanting at the back end of that play. He's not the fastest player in our team, that's for sure. So I think that was just him recognising where he probably didn't have the legs to finish off from 30 metres out and was looking for the support. Realistically, he should have just pinned his ears back and just got as close as he could, and he might have just scraped over the line, but yeah, I mean, just in terms of the chances that we had that we weren't able to complete into and execute into points, it's difficult to say what you can put it down to on each individual thing. But I think the fact that we were making breaks and the fact that we were testing Oldham and we just weren't quite able to get over the line probably speaks more to their defensive attitude, scrambling to stop us rather than our own failings. I think it just shows you that we're playing against a team that were deservedly in second place in the league, chasing down Whitehaven, who are top, and we're firing all cylinders. So, like I say, yeah, I think that speaks more to them being very, very good at in their defensive process rather than us being particularly incohesive.
Mm-hmm. So who were your standout players from your Bears team then?
I've got to say Kieran Sherratt. He was playing wildly out of position at hooker. He had if he was playing there regularly, there's quite a few points that I'd like to pick up on him and improve from the game. But I think him stepping in there at short notice, he did a very good job. So I've got to credit that. But I think our back row really were our standouts once again. So Chris Barrett, Jacob Jones, and the man of the match for me was James Mason. I thought the three of them were particularly good on the day. Loads of work, loads of carries, very good defensively. And they were supported well by Rhys Williams in his second game for us and Toby Richardson in on dual reg from Dewsbury. So I think that sort of unit in the middle of the field was probably our best, and they stepped up from where they've been in previous seasons. So they're probably the guys that I've mentioned.
And James Mason was also the Supporters Club man of the match yesterday as well, so his performance was clearly noted. I'm guessing it must have been nice as well to actually have some forwards for a change.
Yeah, it makes a difference from the last sort of 6 weeks. I think bringing in Rhys Williams has proved to be very good for us, and I think all being well, I'd like to think he'll be with us next season as well. So we're obviously looking ahead to re-signing guys at this point in time, and he's sort of top of the, well, not top, but towards the top of that target list. But yeah, we're starting to get one or two players back now. Harry Kaufman obviously came back from what looked like a season-ending injury. Obviously, it's the wrong end of the year. We would have liked them back maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago, but you've got just to take those punches, really. But yeah, it's nice to have them back in the mix for us.
So there's one game left, and it's just the small matter of the team that's top of the league and needs a win to secure automatic promotion. You've got that weird situation now. I don't know if you picked up on it or whether you were too focused on the match, but towards the end of the game against Oldham, the Oldham fans were starting to sort of cheer for the Bears and sort of looking ahead to next week, because obviously if you guys do the business on Saturday and Oldham win, then that puts the title in their hands. I mean, how do you approach this one? Is it almost a free hit because you're such a massive underdog going into this, or have you got expectations on yourself to finish the season as strongly as possible?
Yeah, I think those two things can both be true. there's certainly no pressure on us, apart from the pressure that we'll put on ourselves in terms of our, like you say, making sure that we try and hit our own standards. But at the same time, it is our last game of the season. We're massive underdogs. Ultimately, I want our players to finish the season on a high in whatever form that takes. Whether that's winning the game or not, it will be determined. But the main thing is that they come out and they enjoy the 80 minutes of rugby. So I want them to express themselves. I want them to come out and play some rugby. I don't want us to sort of get bottled up into too much sort of one-up stuff, which we might have sort of fallen into when we've not had the personnel. But yeah, I want us to move the ball around at the right times. I want us to be confident of taking opportunities if they come across them. And if we do that, we know that we can challenge these teams. We went up to Whitehaven earlier in the year and came pretty close. We were sort of probably 10-15 minutes away from an upset there. So yeah, I think it's just a case of not thinking too much about the opposition, just going out there ready to enjoy the game.
Mm-hmm. And Whitehaven are planning to bring, I've seen sort of 200 plus fans with them on the weekend as well. It should be quite an atmosphere on Saturday at the ground at Rugby. Is that something your players would look forward to, playing in that sort of thriving, loud environment for one last game?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. There's nothing better than playing in front of a nice, loud crowd, whichever way the majority of fans are cheering for. Because the more the Whitehaven fans cheer, the more that encourages the Bears fans to cheer and get behind us as well. When there's a small crowd, your own fans can sometimes be a little bit muted. But yeah, and we're looking forward to playing the league leaders, test ourselves against the best in the competition as it stands, and obviously on our result for people that are not actually at the game. So we know that there's a lot riding on it. So we want to play our part in that and finish the season in the right way.
Great stuff. Well, Tom, best of luck for Saturday, and I will speak to you after the game.
Cheers, Dave. See you then.
So huge thanks to Tom, as always, for joining us on the show. So, Craig, you weren't there on Sunday, so I know you were following closely on social media, and we've chatted before we push record. So I guess kind of over to you to lead where you want to go with this. I know you wanted to obviously talk about the fact that this is the second of three very tough games for the Bears' end of season. Is it playing the top three teams, all of who are still in a shot of getting automatic promotion, at least when they kicked off against the Bears? It's a really difficult way to end the season.
It is. I mean, it's been such a strong league this year, hasn't it? I mean, there's been several teams in with a shot of automatic promotion. Whitehaven got up there and have clung on to the top spot, but Oldham and Newcastle chasing hard. I mean, it's been such a very exciting league this year. I mean, as I said, anyone can beat anyone, really, and the Bears have shown that, beating Newcastle, who are currently in third, and they've also beat Workington, who've secured a playoff spot as well. Mm-hmm. So it's really been a tough finish, though. I mean, there's been less games this year, but I think the structure of the league and the way that the fixtures have been set out, it has felt somewhat of a long slog at times. And this run-in has been particularly difficult on the basis of the number. Again, I don't want to keep dwelling on the number of injuries that the Bears have had, but I was looking at some stats last week. We've got a very kind gentleman who sends us the stats every week, and we've had, I think we've used 50 players this year, which, I mean, is a lot. If you look at previous seasons, that's unprecedented, really. Mm-hmm. And that is purely down to filling holes for covering injuries. There's been very few players that have played consistently every single game, and as I say, this last three games certainly have been difficult. The Newcastle game was certainly a challenge, playing away there and the form that they're in. But I think that's a fairly the game against Oldham's a fairly respectable showing. Would have been nice to get more points on the board, but Oldham are a very good defensive team.
Yeah, so one thing that's worth pointing out, I think, is that certainly from watching from the sidelines, it didn't feel like a game that the Bears had conceded 50 points in. I mean, you and I have seen plenty of games since we started this podcast. There have been matches where the Bears have been comprehensively beaten, and it's really felt like that. The score has been a fair reflection of the game. Sunday, the Bears competed pretty well for large parts of it. They were just unfortunate to come up against a team who were very clinical in punishing any mistake, and a very well settled and very familiar team. Whereas the Bears, such an inconsistent lineup from week in, week out, you're going to have mistakes. But they chanced a few things. They made some stuff happen. They did look good in attack every now and then, which we've seen in parts all the way through the season. It just didn't quite click. But I mean, from my point of view, and I mentioned it to Tom in the post-match interview, just seeing a bunch of actual forwards on the pitch in a Bears shirt made a nice change, given what it's been like the last few weeks. And yeah, it's one of those that they were just undone by a better team, but they were by no means, there was nothing particularly negative about the Bears' performance on Sunday. They were beaten by a better team, but I think they can take a lot of pride in the showing they put up for it.
Yeah, and Scott Naylor said that in his post-match interview for Oldham. He praised the Bears' performance, and he was very pleased with the Oldham performance because he knew that they'd had to fight to win the game. I mean, it sounds like a lopsided scoreline, but certainly from what I could read into that, the Bears were certainly in the game for large parts of it. I mean, I've watched Oldham. I missed the game obviously at the weekend, but I've watched them 3 times now in the last 2 seasons, and I've really been impressed with how they play. They've looked to me like the best team in the league, and it's really surprised me sometimes when, I mean, they beat us 60-0 at home last year.
Yep.
And at that time I thought they looked by far and away the best team in the league, and then they didn't get promoted at the end of the year. This year as well, they've looked when I watched them earlier in the season, they looked absolutely fantastic there. I mean, their front row and their back row, their pack is just phenomenal. Danny Langtry is a superb player, and they've real experience as well in the backs. So it really surprised me that they didn't get promoted last year, and I thought they'd be in with a shout this year. I mean, it looks like they might just come up short on the automatic promotion chances, but I think it's between them and Thunder probably. If they miss out on automatic promotion, it's between them and Thunder for the chance through the playoffs.
One thing that wasn't impressive about Oldham was their choice of a brown away kit. Not a good look. Even if it was some kind of weird nod to Coventry City's infamous brown kit from the 70s. Nah, didn't do it for me at all. Brown with a slight yellow trim. Not a good look at all, I don't think. Although, interestingly enough, it does link very nicely to this weekend's game, because chocolate is one of the colours of Whitehaven, if I remember correctly. We should probably talk about this weekend's game, shouldn't we? Because there's a chance we're going to see the league title settled on the pitch this weekend, because if Whitehaven win, they win the league. But if the Bears can cause an upset, then Oldham have got a very good points difference. So all of those Oldham fans who came down last weekend are going to be cheering for the Bears. And there's going to be a lot of Whitehaven fans coming down as well, aren't there? It's going to be quite an atmosphere this weekend.
Yeah, I've heard rumours that there's 200 to 300 Whitehaven fans coming down. Certainly they'll be coming down creating a real good atmosphere, and their expectations obviously are that they're going to win the league on the weekend. The Bears might have something to say about that. I mean, it's going to be a very tough game for the Bears to play, but I'd like to think that the Bears could create a massive upset.
There's no pressure on the Bears at all, is there?
No, there's no pressure. It's a chance actually for them to cause a real ripple throughout rugby league and create a massive upset. Whitehaven, I'm sure, will come down firing, but the Bears really need to dig in and give it a good go, because it's going to be on the R League app. It's going to be shown live. As I said, there's going to be a lot of Whitehaven fans there. There's going to be a lot of local fans as well who are coming out for the last game of the season. It's sure to be a good atmosphere, and I think it'll be a really a really good game, a really tough game, hard fought. I'm sure of it, and I'd love to see the Bears cause an upset. I mean, it's been a tough few weeks, I would say, in terms of injuries and some of the performances and some of the tough games that the Bears have had. But we tend to win on the last day of the season, and I'd love to see that run continue.
Yeah, definitely. And we came very close to winning away in Whitehaven last season, didn't we? I mean, it was only a last minute try from Carl Foster, wasn't it? It was his then final game as player coach, and he basically dragged his team through it and managed to bag a couple of tries and sneak it for them. So, and we've already seen it
32-16 this year, I think it was.
Yeah,
32-16 away.
But we've seen a team from Cumbria come to the Midlands this year and go back with their tails between their legs. So the Bears can definitely do it. As we've been saying all year, when they click, they can score from anywhere. And they're defensively this year, when they've got their first choice starting 13 out there, they look pretty good. They look fit. They look strong. They look organised. So yeah, like you say, there's no reason why there can't be an upset this Saturday.
And they just need to let loose and give it a go. As you said, there's no pressure on them. Let's, I just remember the Workington game and seeing the players just try and run the ball in from anywhere and playing some really fantastic rugby. I'd love to just see them to do that at the weekend. And, they just need to be fired up. It's the last game of the season. Throw caution to the wind and just give it a good go.
Definitely. Well, the match this weekend is on Saturday at 2 p.m, so do come on down for that. And after the game, there's every reason to stick around because it's the Bears' end-of-season awards. They're going to be handed out. It's always a fun occasion. And with that in mind, so we usually do our own end-of-season awards as well. We're going to dish out ours right now in this episode as a bit of a precursor to Saturday's main event and to get ours out of the way first. And then we can focus on the official ones in our next show. So we've come up with a short list of categories we're going to pick out our forward of the year, our back of the year, young player of the year, which quite frankly could be pretty much anyone in the team given how young this Bears squad is, most improved player, our favourite moment or favourite match of the season, and then of course our overall player of the year. So we'll take it in turns to reveal who we've picked and just give a few words about why. We don't need to go into like full-length Oscar speeches or anything. I think most of these choices will be pretty obvious, but we'll rattle through them one after the other. And do, of course, tweet us at CovBears Podcast to let us know what you think and if you disagree or if you agree with us or if you've got any alternative choices. So, Craig, we'll go you then me each time. So let's kick off with our forward of the year.
Yeah. So it's, to be honest, fairly difficult to pick because if you look at the number of appearances, the pack has been decimated this year with injuries, and actually pretty much most of the front row have played less than 10 games. There's been players playing with injuries as well. It's been a real stop-start. Not a good year to be a forward for the Bears, I don't think, this year. No. Certainly injury-wise. But I've gone for someone who's actually been a Bears player for the last, I think, 3 seasons. He's made appearances for the Bears. He's not a permanent member of the squad, but he's made 11 appearances this year, and that's Sam Davis. He had a run in the team a few weeks ago. I think he scored about 5 tries in 7 appearances. I think he's overall this year he's scored 6 tries in 11 appearances, which is a great return for a hooker. I'd love to know what his assist record is as well, because he's certainly broken the line and assisted tries. He's done great offloads to supporting players to score. I think Elliot Hall's benefited a few times from him. He's obviously come from the Broncos on loan or dual reg. I'd love to see him play a bit more in a Bears shirt. I think I said it last season. He's definitely a player for the future. He looks fantastic all around. He's a great player, and he's probably my forward of the year. My other two, I have looked at other options. I think you really can't discount Kieran Sherritt or Chris Barrett. I think the only thing, their overall play this year has been fantastic. The only thing difference this year from maybe last year and the year before is they just haven't scored as many tries as they had previously. Previous seasons they've scored a few more tries. I think in some respects that's due to the sort of selfless nature of their play. They've set up, I know Kieran's made a number of breaks where he's set up a try, and Baz. They're not players looking for glory. They look to set up colleagues. They work hard. They put their bodies on the line week in, week out, and certainly they would be my other options in there.
Mm-hmm. That's impressive that you've done shortlisting on yours. I've just picked winners for mine. So yeah, I guess that's laziness on my part, but whatever. So my forward of the year, and I know he did have a bit of a stint in the centres at some point, but I think we're classing him as a forward generally, and my forward is Jacob Jones. I think he hit the ground running in February and he just hasn't looked back since. I think he's been dynamic and athletic in attack. He scores tries, he makes good tackles, and I think the long and short of it is we're a much better team when he's in it. So yeah, he's been one of my standout players, regardless of position. I should say,
as a spoiler, he would have been my forward of the year, but I've picked him for another award. So
fair enough.
Yeah, so that's why he's not in there.
Okay, well he is my forward of the year. So let's go on to back of the year. I have a feeling that here, and probably our overall player of the year, we're probably going to be in agreement with each other, Craig. But let's hear your back of the year and we'll see how closely aligned we are to each other.
Well, actually, I haven't picked who you would think I would pick.
Okay.
Again, as the player that I would have probably picked as back of the year is going to win another one of my nomination for another award.
Okay.
But I've actually picked Hayden Freeman.
Okay.
There is another player I think who was quite close.
I might well be talking about him in a second.
I've picked Hayden on the basis that while he hasn't scored as many tries this year as he normally does, and on paper people might look at that and think, he's maybe not had as good a season as previous years, but he's still young. I think he was Bears Young Player of the Year last year, wasn't he, when he's in his fourth season for the Bears?
Yeah.
But he's played out of position for large parts this year. He's played in the centres, and actually he looks like he's becoming quite a good centre. He's got pace to burn. He's still scored 5 tries this year. A couple of those have been absolute crackers as well. So certainly I think he'd be my choice there. Another option is Rhys Rance. I think he, when he's on fire, he looks phenomenal. He's got pace to burn. He's a brilliant finisher. I think he's been unfortunate actually not to get more tries. I think he's had 7, but he had a real purple patch a few weeks ago where I think he scored 5 tries in 6 games or something. So he's a fantastic player. I hope that he sticks around and we get to see a bit more of him next year.
Yeah, definitely. So my back of the year, much as I never like to be captain obvious, for me there isn't really another choice other than Elliot Hall for back of the year for me.
Yeah.
What do we say? What else can we say about him? He's practically scored a try a game. He's been really solid in defence, obviously outstanding in attack. I think his positioning's great. He reads the game brilliantly. For me, he's one of the best support runners that we've seen since we started this podcast. So many of his tries have just come from him seeing what's on and being on the shoulder of whoever's got the ball. I just think an incredible first season as a Bear, and I hope we, again, as with Rhys, I hope we see him again next year because he's been an absolute pleasure to watch. So Next up, young player of the year, which, as I said, to be fair, could be most of the squad. I don't know what age we're counting as young player, but let's hear your choice, Craig.
Well, yeah, I looked at the squad earlier, and young player is normally under 23, isn't it? And that's pretty much 90% of the squad. So,
yeah.
But I've gone for. I mentioned already he would have been my forward of the year probably, but I've put him as young player of the year, and that's Jacob Jones. He's in his third season playing at the Bears. He previously played, I think, under dual reg, didn't he, from Broncos? But this year he's really come of age. I think he's 17 appearances so far, and 7 tries, which is a good return for a second row. He's also set up a number of tries. I mean, his offloads are brilliant. Defensively, he's good. He is the one player that really creates something. Sometimes when things aren't really going the Bears' way, he pops up and does something great, and we make something out of it. He's a fantastic player, very, very committed as well. I think he's got a big future in the game, and again, he's another player I'm interested to see how he develops over the next couple of years, because I think he's just going to get better and better.
Definitely.
He's just fantastic. In terms of the rest of the squad, there are plenty of other players I could stick in there, but I'm going to give an honourable mention to Cameron Stewart. I mean, he's a really young lad, and he's playing in the hardest position in the field, in the props. And I watched him a few weeks ago, and, someone of his age coming in and facing some of these teams in League One, a lot of players would crumble and struggle, and he was just ready to carry the ball every time. He's a great young prospect. I think he's still maturing. I think give him another year or two, I think he'll be a fantastic player.
Yeah, he never shirks a tackle. He never refuses to take the ball, does he? His enthusiasm and his willingness to do the right thing for the team is it just makes him highly likable. He did come into the thinking for my choice for Young Player of the Year as well. Ultimately, I've gone same as you, Craig. I've decided for Jacob as well. I think for all the previous reasons and for everything you said. So let's do Most Improved Player now. Interested to hear what you've got for this one, Craig.
I'll start by saying I had Jacob in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think he's looked fantastic in previous appearances he made prior to this season. But actually, just to see his improvement throughout the season has been fantastic. I think he's massively. The talent was always there, but given an opportunity to get a run in the team, and he's done brilliantly. But actually, I don't mean this. I'm giving this award to someone who's actually quite an experienced player, but he's someone who, hasn't maybe had a complete run in the team, and actually this season he had a good run in the team, and he's been fantastic, and he's looked really, really good in pretty much every game I've seen him play, and that's Harry Kaufman.
Snap.
Very underappreciated player, and he's really shown what he's about this year. So I think he's had a fantastic, really good season, a fantastic season, and certainly deserves all credit for everything he's done this year.
Definitely, yes. He's my most improved player as well. I think I've got he's like a fine wine, isn't he? He just keeps getting better, and yeah. I think what's really impressive now, like he is pretty much. He's probably the most experienced player in the squad now. He's certainly one of those sort of senior leaders that you look to on the pitch, and for me, he's always been a reliable player, but he's become a really impactful player this year as well. Like, that perhaps he's not going to do as long a stint as some of the younger props, but that when Harry's on the pitch, he's going to take the ball forward, he's going to be immovable in defence, and he's going to get that team moving around, and he's going to organise them, and he's going to lead by example. And yeah, I mean, we sang his praises last year, sort of either side of his stint in America, and as you said, Craig, he's had a bit more of a run in the team this year. He looks fitter this year. He looks stronger. He looks more confident, and I think he's been such a vital player to have in the squad, and he's another one he's been massively missed when he's not been there, and I think that's testament to what an impact he has on the team. So I back you all the way on that. He is my choice also.
Yeah, there was. Which game was it a few weeks ago? I can't remember which one it was, but he was easily the best player on the pitch for the first half hour. And he's I'm looking forward, because he's a Cumbrian lad himself. I'm looking forward to seeing what he pulls out of the bag on the weekend. I'm sure he'll be massively up for the game.
That is a very good point. Very good indeed. So let's pause on the individual awards for now, because we've only got our overall player of the year left, and let's just quickly pick out either our favourite match or our favourite moment of the season. So Craig, again, you start on this, and then I'll chip in with mine afterwards.
Well, sadly, I missed the Newcastle game because I was away that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I was delighted with the result, but I was so disappointed that I wasn't there. And if I had been there, that would have been my favourite game probably. And my favourite moment from that game would have been the Nathan Conroy chip through, and which was gathered by him and then fed to Nick Newman to score under the post. Certainly one of the tries of the season. It won try of the week on our league, didn't it? So that would have been it. However, the game that I did see was the Workington game, and that was just phenomenal that day. As I said, that was kind of like watching the Bears play at their potential, and not only that, I was comfortable and confident throughout the whole game that we were going to win it. We were the better side throughout. We were basically scoring at will when we wanted to. Defensively, we were good. We played some fantastic rugby that day, and there was pace all over the pitch. It looked like the Bears team I want to see play every week. Obviously, everything had come together that week. We had a full team that week. A lot of players were on top form as well. It was just fantastic to watch that day, and it shows the potential is there, and a lot of those players need to realise that that's how they can perform when things are really working for them. So yeah, it was fantastic that day.
It's spooky. It's almost like you've read my notes for my nomination of this award and just sort of tweaked it a little bit, because the Workington game was very close second for me for my match / moment of the year. But I was fortunate enough to be there for the Newcastle game, so I have picked the Newcastle win. I think that obviously it was the second game of the season. It was sort of still very fresh into the new year, but it was spectacular. And I think, as with the Workington game, there was some really wonderful free-flowing rugby, excellent defence. As you mentioned, that try of the week from Nick Newman, which was brilliantly set up by Nathan Conroy. And let's not forget, even though it was really early in the year, that win put us top of the league for a week, and that was really exciting. That was great to see.
Yeah.
And as with the Workington game, it just showed what this club could be capable of, and it just underlined that when the Bears click, they are quite a sensational side, and they can score from anywhere. Yeah. So we've covered both of them between us, so I think that works. I think most listeners will agree that those two are the standout games this year. So, okay, we've got one award left. It's time for our overall player of the year, and I have a sneaky suspicion we're probably going to say the same name here. Yeah. But let's have yours first, Craig, just to see if my suspicions are correct.
Well, it has to be Elliot Hall, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
8 appearances this year, 17 tries. He's scored a try a game pretty much every week. I'm hoping that on the weekend he'll score a couple so that he maintains a one try a game record. Mm-hmm. It's up there with the best scoring records in the league. He's scored some sensational tries. He's deceptively fast. He seems to sort of hit the ball and then at pace, and then he has extra gears to go, and people just don't seem to expect it. Before you know it, he's round their fullback and he's gone, and no one catches him when he breaks the line. But you mentioned it earlier. He is everything that you need from a fullback from a support point of view. He's a support runner. He seems to instinctively know when something's going to happen. And he's there, when a ball is chipped through, when a forward makes a break and turns around to offload, he's generally there and he's ready to pick up and score. Not only that, he's also, due to Nick Newman leaving earlier in the season, he's taken on kicking duties, and he's been really good at that as well. He's just been fantastic. I really do hope the Bears secure him for next year. I think he's been given an opportunity at the Bears. He's been at other clubs, but he's been given an opportunity at the Bears to show what he can do, and he's really, really done fantastically well. He's only 21, I think, so he's surely got to be in with a shout for Young Player of the Year in League One. He's just all around. He's been phenomenal. I have a couple of honourable mentions as well. First one is Nathan Conroy. I think he's been fantastic this year. He's had to play the last couple of months out of position, playing in the halves. But he's as good a hooker as I've seen in the league this year when he's been playing at his preferred position. The only strange stat is I don't think he scored a try this year, which is quite amazing. But he has set up a number of tries, hasn't he, with some fantastic play, especially some great chips through. I mean, I heard earlier in the season that he doesn't really rate his kicking game, but he's set up so many tries from lovely little dinks through, which he's gathered himself and then fed someone. I don't know how many assists he's got for Elliot Hall, but he's certainly been one of the best creative players the Bears have had this year. And then the other nomination would have been Jacob Jones, and we've already talked about what he's brought to the table this year. So I'm going to guess then your nomination is pretty similar then.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything you said, I just completely agree with. Yeah, I've gone for Elliot Hall as my winner. And yeah, Jacob and Nathan would have been the other two that would have come close to it. But yeah, there's nothing else we can say about Elliot, really. He's just been excellent for us. And like you, I really hope he's out there wearing number 1 for the Bears again next season. And and I think you're right. I think he should be. He deserves to be nominated for the overall league player of the Young Player of the Year award as well, because he has been spectacular. And it hasn't mattered where the opposition is in the table. Generally, he's scored against them. So yeah, a really, really impressive first season. I know I said it earlier, but yeah, my God, in terms of impactful players, like starting their Bears career in the way that they mean to go on and then maintaining it all season, what a year he's had. Just a unbelievably brilliant signing, and fingers crossed he's playing for us again in 2020. So yeah, well, that concludes our own awards. So do, of course, join us on Saturday for the match against Whitehaven, and then stick around for the official awards post-game. They are always good fun. They tend to get slightly less coherent the longer the awards go on, and they slip into the unofficial awards. Can't vouch so much for those. Don't know what they're going to be like this year, but they're usually still worth sticking around. They're usually entertaining at the very least. But as far as this week's show goes, that probably does it. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. We are sponsored by York's Tim. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Craig, thanks as always, and I will catch you for one last go around at the weekend.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.